All right, Jeremy here, JeepsUnlimitedPartsBreakers.com, 303-666-9020. I'm a little excited for this frame, okay? Not because it's the cleanest frame we've ever had. It is actually a really nice frame, but it does have an issue on it. I won't beat around the bush too much about that. I'll show you. It is on the bottom side, so I have to flip it over to show you that. And essentially, it's got 2 pen holes in it, right where the belly pan mounts. Why I'm excited about this frame is we don't discount our frames very often. Obviously, I don't like to do that. I think these things cost a lot more than people think or know. Really the dynamics on being able to continue to part these as long as we've been doing this, which this is 2025 marks 19 years. It's a long time, and I think a long time ago we would get to a point, and I thought it would probably be 10 years down the road or around that, or they just run out. We've definitely, I remember the auctions. We don't buy a lot on auctions. A lot of them come in running, driving off the road. We spend a little bit more on them, but I always gauge with auctions kind of how the market is. And I remember 10 years ago, you could go to the auction sites, whether it be Mannheim, at the time it was Clody's, those have kind of, Mannheim's still around, IAA, Copart, those are the wrecked ones. We really try to stay away from those because you typically are finding things you don't want in them. But anyway, I remember in those, we'd kind of gauge for what's out there, how many is available and whatnot. And I shit you not, excuse my French, but 5 to 10 years ago, you could go on there and there would be at any given time at any auction site, 500 plus that were coming up in the next 3 months. I went on there, and I have been going on there on these sites that are still existing. Some of them are not, or they've been bought out. And the last 3 or 4 months, just to, see what's going on out there. Especially with the economy and the world and blah, blah, blah being where it's at. And the last 3 months, maybe in the last solid year, that number has drastically dropped. You're now seeing 2 or 3 on these auction sites, and upwards to 30 at most on them. And some of those are future auctions and whatnot. So thankfully we've never relied on that market to buy from. Like I said, we've always really gone after private party. I'm not going to give you a huge explanation why that is. I know we pay a lot more for them by doing that, or have in the past, not always, but most of the time. But for us, it makes a lot more sense. We get the entire vehicle, whether they have high mileage or there's a tranny bad or an engine bad. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes there's really not much bad about them. They're now at the point now where those ones that aren't much bad, they are worth fixing, because TJs especially are pulling insane amounts. Even in bad economies, these things are holding their value. So, and especially in the YJs are starting to be that way in CJs too. So TJs. So anyway, but at the flip side of that, it's doing the same thing to the private market. So where you used to go on Facebook, Craigslist, and buy a whole Jeep for, you could get one. I think we used to average $5,000-$6,000 on a Jeep we were, going to be parting. That number has not only gone up, but they're far and few between on how many we find. You can see our row of them. We used to have 3 rows of Wranglers and CJs. Now we have 1 row, and it's getting bleak. These things part out so quickly. So again, it's a good problem, but it's a problem because inventory is not at a click of a button anymore. And so that kind of goes back to this frame. And I don't, because of that, we've always asked for the same, even with the economy being up and being down. We've never increased our costs. We never our cost of our parts, and never really had to go down on them either. And that obviously supply and demand. You can see I have some frames right now. We pulled a lot of stuff apart. A lot of these got broke down for tubs in our prime time, which is January through June. And we were like, we'll get to them later and finish stripping them. But out of all those frames, there's 1 4-cylinder 9702 right there. The rest of those are YJ or old CJ. There's this one here, 03 to 06 6-cylinder. And then these are CJ frames. And then if you look, there's a couple big stacks I have out there, all YJs. So I have 2 out of the probably 60 frames that we have sitting out here. We have 2 good frames, and this one being a lower grade good, but still good. We have 1 tweaked frame over there, TJ, and that I'll talk a little bit about here in just a moment, why that one you would have not have guessed it was tweaked, but I'll get into that. So they're just hard to get, and so for that reason, I don't discount them. And so yeah, I'm a little excited. I don't like obviously as much as we can get, right? That's the name of the game. But at the same time, when we get an opportunity to help somebody out, whether that be a couple $100, or in this case it's a substantial discount, $1,000, which is a lot on a frame. I mean, it's well more than we'd like to do on it. That tweaked one over there, that's the same thing. It's not a hard tweak. It was a curb check. What I think probably happened. That thing came in running, driving. I didn't drive it down the highway, but we drove it around here. We drove around the streets. I pulled it out of a neighborhood close by. It was straight fenders, straight everything. And it just goes to show you why it's important to do what we do, which is we scope our frames and we measure our frames. Jim has set up a really cool jig. When we get them all said and done, we set them in there, and we still measure them, but it just allows us to do a quick eye-to-eye on them. This one passed that. I had a feeling there was going to be a pinhole, because when I ran a scope through it, I started seeing a little bit of light come through on both sides. And it is a little, in 19 years, I have never seen this part. I've seen this get a little scaled, especially because it's metal on metal with your cross member there. But usually that scaling is a lot of from the leach. It kind of leaches out from the belly pan itself. You can see that oftentimes when you pull them. They'll be kind of a dish shaped on the bottom of those belly pans, or cross member skip plates, whatever you want to call them. But I don't see a lot of material taken out of the frame. Now, that doesn't mean they don't rust there or don't have issues there, but it's usually not, it actually ever has been like this one. So I was a little bummed when I seen that. Obviously, this was supposed to be a beautiful grade A frame, but it will probably make somebody happy, and that's cool. I'm totally fine with that. On the ones that we have to do that way, that's fine. You win some, lose some. So on that note, if you're looking for a tub, this would be a good opportunity to get a frame that I would definitely address it. Don't not address it. And I'm going to flip it over here, and you be the judge of how bad it is. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for a frame and a tub, there's an opportunity to get both for, you both delivered for well under what you pay almost for just the frame delivered. So take that opportunity if you have it, if you haven't already found something else. And if you have, I understand. It's all good. Sometimes the old saying, what is it? $1 late, buck, whatever. You know what it is. I'm tired. So, but let's talk about the top, which is cherry, beautiful, nice and clean like it should be. I'll just quickly roll through a few things I always like to look for. Bolt holes are a big deal, especially if they've had big bumpers on them. This one did not. These are perfect. Nice clean threads. Not a huge deal if you had to monkey around pulling one, but it is and actually usually you don't have to pull them. Normally when they're bad, they're like blown out. They pop the nuts out. They're welded nuts on the inside, and then you're having to put a nut back in there. Not a big deal, but it is something to judge how clean this frame really is and how unfortunate that little section came out to be on it. So, and then the other thing I like to show you is how perfectly round this guy and the rest of those guys are. And we'll get closer to them in just a second. But again, you got body bushing, gets pinched there. Really easy to trap dirt, especially if you're out driving in the sand or the creeks or the lakes, the ocean, whatever. And they'll eat themselves out from being squished in there. So a lot of times when you pull them, especially Midwest, East Coast ones, those might be blown out. Again, not a hard fix. If you had to replace those on a frame, that would not be a reason I would replace the whole frame. My little boy is yelling up there. I was yelling at the dog. So towers, okay, coil shock mount towers, both. These are actually in great shape. A little paint worn off, a little oxidized metal, but nothing rusty. There's your engine, 4.0 again, 6-cylinder frame mounts. They are offset. That's the way they're supposed to be. That always throws people when they look at them, because this one sits a little further forward, but that's just the way they are. I had a guy not too long ago do a frame conversion, or a 2.5 to a 4-liter conversion, and welded those off, a measuring, and straight that, and then had his motor sitting in cockeyed and couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I showed him a picture, and he goes, "Oh, looks like they're factory offset." So, okay, control arm mounts. These guys, beautiful, nice, clean. And we'll flip her over and show you the underside of them. But even in this area, you see them down in here. Not a big deal, I know, but it goes to show you how clean this frame really is. Because that area, again, there's not a big clean out. There's side ones, cutouts here, but it will, anything that it can trap, that's usually where they rust out. When you get a little, when I say oxidized metal, I tell everybody about it. We're not seeing scale build up here. We'll see that on the bottom a little bit, but just browning in the metal where the paints come off, okay? And then another area, this and these guys. So the back of your cross member, it's just, they made it poorly. It was a bad idea the way they did this, but look at the bushing holes and the back ones. They're beautiful. And these are in great, I mean, this is beautiful. I mean, it's got a little bit here, a little bit here. This is all nice and clean though, a little oxidation on it, but, and then same up here. Another issue they have, this one's got a little bit buildup on it, but not lost any layering or anything. Just sits there. Salt, sand, dirt, mud, whatever you want it, wherever, you know, pick your poison where you're at, but still very clean. Definitely would address it. You don't want it eating itself inside and out. So, okay, and then the holes, you clean out holes, which aren't great, clean out holes, but the ones that are, a little browning around them. This one and that one, I think that's about where we see these pinholes, but we'll flip her over here in just a second. Okay, just want to go through, nice, clean, back straight support here. Same here, here's your, that one's not bad. Browning there, and all the way up, okay? All right, so put the phone down just for a second here. To be honest with you, I thought this was a frame that came off the tub, but I think that one actually sold already. Because I don't see it, and this one came in a little while ago. I thought this one was gone, but it's not, so that's fortunate for somebody. I definitely could have sold it a few times. I'm lifting these by myself. Unit isn't out here. They're not that heavy. You can't pick up the whole thing, but you can lift them and move them around and drag them around. Trying to get that cardboard out of the piece of wood out from under it. Because do some photos after I video this. App I use will pull the backgrounds out of it. If there's anything comes up in the background, it will show it. So not that it matters. I'm a little anal and stuff like this. It takes so long to list stuff, so I like to have them right the first time. Okay, so low battery. Yeah, that's what happened last time. Hopefully it didn't corrupt it like it did on my tub earlier. So anyway, nice clean supports, nice clean bowl holes, good thread, nothing through here. Okay, I don't have to monkey with pulling anything. These do break a lot, that's why I like showing them. I did see one here. This one's broke off, so you'll have to extract that. There's a T-bar kit you can get to get rid of these, and you may want to, especially if you're in an area that likes to rust, because you go to replace your shocks and they're hard to get off. And you can do it way easier. So, okay, a little browning, a little, maybe even a top layer of scale there, a little oxidation scale there. And then again, this is nice and clean. Original, this is all original paint. I don't like to doctor them up, clean them, paint them. I let the customers usually do that. We used to sandblast, but it just wasn't worth it. It was a huge liability for us. We had a compressor that actually went bad. One of my guys was, this is years ago, but I want to see how clean those are. And the intake, which is a bad design, it was like a Ingersoll Rand, but it was an expensive compressor. It was an old one. And the intake was right by the exhaust. And when the rings went bad, we lost a couple rings. It would still run, but it would smoke, and that intake would suck it into our respirators, and not a good thing. I had a guy come in, luckily a friend of mine, but also terrifying, and I gotta clean the air up in there. Said, is this supposed to be, I think it was black, it would show up on the little mask. And it's like, we had to take him in the hospital. It was very scary. He's okay, but I sold the machine right after that. I was like, it's not worth it. And at the time, to be quite honest with you, there's these holes here. Those are factory. You only see those on the 04 and ups, usually. You don't see those usually on the 03s and downs. And it was an extra skid plate they offered. See how these are nice and clean and straight? That's another thing I like to see. Oftentimes these things S out or wiggle out, especially if they've ever been hit at all or come down off a hard rock. They're pretty strong, but they will bend, and these are really nice shape. So all the way back up in here. And I got the washer pretty good, but you can see I didn't take a toothbrush to it. It's nice clean metal, or paint I should say, under there. Beautiful up in there. So, and anyway, this is again a long time ago. There's a little bit of build up on these ones, so definitely want to get in there with a Rust-Oleum or some sort of neutralizer and get it out of there, or if you're sandblasting it, this would be a good candidate, especially the price of it. But at the time, this was a long time ago, the market really hadn't permitted us to get anything more, so we were essentially doing it for free, and materials for sandblasting isn't cheap, and we didn't have a collection device or anything like that, so we stopped doing it. It's funny now, everybody wants it, especially if they see our old videos, but I usually just refer it out if we do it locally, and I don't think there's many people. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's go right to it here. I want to come back to these areas because these are exceptionally clean. There's nice thick, there's nothing. This is usually an area that I see, again, mostly time from the cross members, okay, but these are actually nice and clean. But for whatever reason, right here, it just started eating it out. And I hit this, you know, we have a pretty good pressure washer Hotsy over there. So, I mean, the extent of this is a good, probably 2 inches by about 1 inch. You know, it gets real, you can feel it kind of soft right about here. You can kind of see the shininess difference. And not that that matters, because I mean, somebody go in here probably replace a good section of this, but I wouldn't get into this because it's obviously your alignment hole with your belly pan. It really doesn't need it. It's real nice and it's solid through here. I wouldn't monkey with any of this. I've seen guys build caps and reinforce this area, again, because it is kind of a goofy place the way they made it. But I mean, you can see how clean the threads are in here. They're not even, some of even the ones back there had a little more buildup than even these do. These are beautiful. So, but for whatever reason, and it's exactly the same place, both sides. And so that little guy right there, that's all it is. I'm not telling you, you know, just not consider it, because obviously I wouldn't be pricing the way I am if I was meaning that, but it will sell. And people ask all the time, you have one of a little lesser grade, I can fix things, and here's your chance. So same thing here, okay, about the extent of it. You can tell you the difference in the metal here. It's real thick up and around the corners, and it starts thinning out right around there. So maybe 2/4 ish, but again, I know that's not how they repair things. So I ran a scope down this guy both ways to see, and this is the only area, and it probably went from the inside out, although wouldn't doubt if it came from this side. It's hard to say. It is kind of it's, you know, the clean out is here. I use them for tow hooks, but when I'm loading them, but so it's hard to say. Maybe it had stuff coming in from the inside, but it's just bizarre that it's exactly, literally, I mean, almost to the T, right where that support comes into it almost. So, all right, well, that's it. So it'll be listed on the site in a few days. I'll send it out to a few people who've called this week. If it doesn't sell, you'll see it posted if you happen to run across it on YouTube. And especially because we get calls years later. Even this frame won't last. I would say maybe 3-4 weeks and it'll be gone. But nonetheless, you can always ask, hey, you just have something else like that? And I try not to, obviously, but you just never know sometimes. And sometimes stuff does come in. Sometimes we don't even know it. So this is also another reason I want to point out too, why we do pre-dismantle deposits the way we do. So like on a vehicle out there, mainly the Wranglers, we do this, CJs, whatnot. But like on that purple one that came in, 4-cylinder, we do a video of it as it sits, essentially show you a couple areas. This goes for both the tub and the frame, and essentially grade it the best we can. You know, if there's something, possibly we'll always discount on the price on the side that it probably is, even if we get in there and later it's not. So pre-dismantles happen, you get a deposit put down on it. It's usually 10% of the bill, whatever the bill ends up being. It's refundable if it comes out worse than we thought, or obviously we can get the price down depending on what it is, if it's still something you want to mess with. If it comes out better than we thought, which is kind of the idea here, the goal here, it allows us to cash flow the yard a little differently. If we have money riding on something, we can shift gears and put that into the bay, start doing tear down on it, versus kind of willy-nilly coming out and essentially ending up with, you know, stuff like this out here, which is kind of what we did last year. So, but anyway, yeah, so we'll get it all down, and then you do get another series of photos like you'll see on this one. We obviously won't publish it to the site, but we'll email them to you or text them, whatever you prefer. And then we'll do a full video, another 20 minutes of your life video. And hopefully in that one, we're saying, hey, this is better than we thought, you know, and we would have priced it at this, but, you know, and there's always a little bit of a discount for pre-dismantle stuff. So I only have one TJ over there that just came in that's even, you know, would even qualify for pre-dismantle right now. The rest of those are CJs and YJs. So, and I got 2 more YJs today, which are great. I love the YJs too. They're great to part too, but TJs are what's been hard to get. So, all right, 303-666-9020, partsbreakers.com. Thanks for spending the evening with me if you have, and get some photos of this guy and get these, like I said, sent out. If you have any other questions or anything, give me a shout. I got to put up a JK frame here in a minute, but that one's already sold. So just got to do a final video on it. It was a pre-dismantle. So, all right. Thanks, guys.